Welcome to the Unlock Your Blocks podcast. My name is Elyssa and I am your host. One of the worst side effects of imposter syndrome is getting stuck in analysis paralysis. If you are ready to get unstuck and out of this cycle that can just pause you in your tracks and keep you from getting to your dreams, these hacks today that I'm going to walk you through are really going to help. I'm going to lay out why the paralysis sets in, the warning signs that you need to watch for, and my top hacks for actually getting total relief. So let's talk about what imposter syndrome really is, okay? And where does it come from? So imposter syndrome, if you haven't heard this term, it's really being used a lot right now. It's a trending term. And it just means that you feel like you don't really have a right to be doing what you're doing, talking about what you're talking about. Maybe you're not the foremost expert out there, so you don't feel like you have a right to be talking about a certain topic, especially if you have your own business and you're doing social media for yourself. It can feel very overwhelming and it can actually keep us in that freeze state of the sympathetic nervous system to think that somebody out there is going to figure out that I'm not all I'm cracked up to be. Somebody else out there is going to see who I really am. They're going to know I don't deserve to be here. And that is going to make it so that I get rejected, abandoned, and the survival system just goes wild at that point with what it thinks can happen. So this is probably a feeling that you learned, a programming that you learned when you were a little girl. So children will watch their environment. And this is wonderful. This is the great thing about the survival brain. It will keep an eye on your environment and figure out how you are most likely to get your needs met. So if it finds that by being small, having fewer needs, speaking up less, or only speaking up when you're really, really sure that you're right, or showing up when you're ready to lawyer up, it's kind of how it can also come across. If you learned those things as a kid, then your brain would have just sort of imprinted, okay, in order to get our needs met, we need to absolutely be sure that we deserve to be saying something at this point. So you might have even had evidence, like actual evidence, actual people telling you that unless you know that you're right, you should just not speak up. Or unless that you're prepared to be judged for your mistakes, you should not be putting yourself out there in any way. So you might have been actually judged. You might have been actually maybe abandoned emotionally or physically, or neglected physically, because you showed up in a way that somebody else wasn't comfortable with. And so, I use this term to describe this. It's like being too big for your britches, thinking that you're all that. Now, the wonderful thing about this whole process is that it's a great survival technique, but it causes problems in adulthood. So this protector part will come out when you're being programmed early on to help you get your needs met. But when it continues on into adulthood, we're running into all kinds of things like staying in that prolonged fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode of the sympathetic nervous system, which is your survival brain system. Your nervous system can really kind of get fried because you're going to keep producing all of the things that you need if you're actually running from a wild animal. So you're going to keep having cortisol rushes. You're going to keep having adrenaline rushes. Your chemicals in your brain and your body are going to kind of burn out. You might get adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, any messaging that is in your brain that causes you to stay in survival mode with a fear that you're going to be rejected, abandoned. Your brain and your survival system automatically jump to the assumption that if you're rejected and abandoned, you're now kicked out of the herd and you're an not suspect, but an easy target for predators. So that's a real life or death threat that it thinks is happening anytime there's a risk of rejection or judgment when you put yourself out there. So it's safer just to stay small. Now, if you're staying small because of imposter syndrome, because you're like, maybe someone's asked you, well, who do you think you are to go out there and do this thing? Or who do you think you are to have, I was just talking to a client about this, to have the best seats on the plane. Even if you pay for them with points and you get them for free, like, who are you to have this fancy experience? So you might feel imposter syndrome when you had people actually question your worth and value unless you're staying within what they can tolerate. Now, what does this cause in the long run? This causes us to stay stuck. It causes us only to be able to make progress on the things that feel safe. So anything that feels like a risk. So when I first started my business, I was trying to put myself out there on social media after not having had social media for years. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what if I get trolls? What if I get haters? Which, by the way, you have to have a lot of followers for that really to happen. But I've had a few haters, pop into my DMs or pop into the comments and stuff. And what you don't realize at the time that you're feeling this imposter syndrome is it's actually not going to affect whether or not you're okay. But the problem is you won't be able to do the things that will move the needle forward for your goals, like your soul heart goals, as long as you are feeling this analysis paralysis due to not being able to move into a position of visibility or not being able to play a little bit bigger. You need to stay small to keep your system feeling like it's safe. So it's going to do everything that it can to just throw all of the scary ideas at you to keep you in this stuck mode. So we think that it's a defect in us that we're stuck. Have you ever felt that way? Maybe you're feeling like I should be able to just follow this list that I wrote out for myself on how to whatever, do my social media or how to write my book or how to change my career or how to, I don't know. It could be any goal that you have for yourself. Start this new hobby. I should. So if you hear yourself shoulding, that's going to be a problem. That indicates there's something going on underneath all those layers. So every new unknown move is going to feel to your nervous system and your survival brain like a possible exposure to judgment, abandonment, being kicked out of the herd, and being eaten by a predator. So it's very extreme. It escalates quickly. So the other thing that this does is it causes us to not have access to our higher level thinking that can actually help us with making those decisions that we need to make to bring our dreams a little bit closer. So, I'll just tell on myself a little bit here. I've wanted to lead luxury retreats for years. But there's a little voice telling me in my head, no one's going to pay for that. No one, what do you have to offer that would really be worth anything, other than this, just the accommodations? What kind of content would you have? So all these little negative self-talk pieces come into play anytime I have a new big idea that I want to do. And what's beautiful is that we can rewire this. But as long as this protector part is active, this analysis paralysis, like, I better just not move unless I'm positive it's going to work and go perfectly. It's a big risk for us when we perceive that we're not going to survive rejection and abandonment. If we believe we can't keep ourselves safe through that and make sure we get our needs met through to the other side of that, our system doesn't have any reason to really think that it's worth it. It's not a worthwhile risk. It's outside our window of tolerance. So why would we then be able to move through that? We can't. When we're stuck in that survival mode space, who am I to do this thing? These are all the reasons why I probably shouldn't be the person that does this. And these are all the ways that I'm probably going to get rejected and abandoned and judged. So now I'm just going to stay small. I'm going to stay safe. I'm going to stay stuck. You can't execute anything from that level of thinking because your higher level thinking goes offline when you're in that state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So then what's the solution? What are we going to do about this? Because you can't just force your system, right? We can't just, so that window of tolerance that I talk about, it's the amount of change and the amount of progress you could make, movement you could make without throwing yourself into survival mode in a prolonged way. So if you have to do things that are going to put you outside of there, because at first, anything unknown put me into survival mode. Just literally anything that I didn't know how this was going to go, I was in survival mode. I was, and I was doing all of the self-sabotage that goes with my particular brand of survival mode. And so as you begin to figure out how to regulate, you can actually make bigger and bigger moves within that little window of tolerance. And then you can enlarge your window of tolerance for new things and unknown things based on whether or not you keep yourself safe no matter what. Now, this is the hack, okay? So first, you need to notice when you are being paralyzed in your analysis of everything that needs to be done. So let's say for me, the retreat was the goal, which by the way, I've led one now and we're planning another one in September. So if you want to join us in Greece in a luxury setting, in a villa with a private chef, with beautifully curated food and scenery and activities and wonderful group sessions, come see me after class. You can go to ElyssaSmith.com/retreat and get more information there. But let's just use that as an example. So for me, what this looked like is I had to figure out, what am I doing? Why do I want to do it? You have to figure out, is the thing that you're feeling imposter syndrome about and that's paralyzing you, is that thing truly aligned with you? If it's not, you will not be able to convince your survival brain to attempt it. But if it is truly aligned with you, then the next step is when you notice that you're paralyzed. Okay, here's your hack. Do a pattern interrupt. A pattern interrupt is anything that you can do to snap your survival brain out of it. Now, we're not going to be rough with ourselves. This is a gentle pattern interrupt, but it has to be a total turn away from the fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. So we're not just going to like go into a dorsal state and just, kind of get small and take a nap and move on and try and avoid and procrastinate. I know I'm not attacking anyone. The reason I can speak to this is because it's me. But what you do in that moment is you listen to a favorite song. You dance around a little bit. You go for a walk. You breathe in the outside air. You go and put your bare feet on the grass and you get your grounding moment in. Whatever brings a hit of joy for you is going to be the thing that can get you out of the paralysis state. Another thing you can do is just have a mindful moment. So this could be listening to a guided meditation. There are wonderful meditations for free on YouTube. Or if you want an app, Headspace is great for this. The Calm app is great for this. So whatever you do, it needs to be something that is a total redirect. Now, if you're sitting, let's say for me, sitting at my desk and I'm working and then I'm looking at the list of things that needs to happen in order for us to have our first retreat. It's like, you can get that to-do list overwhelm, which by the way is going to be in one of the next solo episodes. We're going to be talking about to-do list overwhelm and exactly how I tackle this step by step. So I'm going to lay out all those things for you in one of the upcoming solo episodes. But on the retreat, so if I'm looking at that list and it's like, oh gosh, how am I going to talk about this? How am I going to, invite people to this? Like, what if they just think like, oh, you are so not worth it, because you think those thoughts. So the first step is to like stand up. So I do this all the time, every day when I get a little bit overwhelmed or my system starts to go into that survival mode, that paralysis, I stand up, I stretch my arms out, I take a nice big deep breath, just really noticing the air coming in through the nasal passages and into my, windpipe and noticing the breath. I'll turn on my favorite pump up song. As you know, if you've listened to other guest episodes of this podcast, I usually ask my guests, what is your favorite pump up song right now? Because that in and of itself is enough of a pattern interrupt that you can actually get out of survival mode just by dancing around to a song that pops in. So any type of joy hit that you can get, go for that, redirect. Okay. So get in your body in the moment, doing something that makes you feel like you're more in your power. A lot of music does that for me. I have fierce girl power music that I listen to, or maybe if I'm not going to be on camera for the rest of the day, I'll just throw on my running shoes and go for a quick like sprint on my treadmill, something to get you back in your body. That is my biggest hack for paralysis. Do something else that is a total redirect and get yourself back in your body. Now, once you do that, you have a few minutes of survival system calm where you can actually identify, what is that message that's coming? Is it, oh, who do you think you are? Is it, you'll never be able to do all of that? Is it, no one wants this, everyone's going to reject this? What is the thought pattern there? And if you can identify that, go a step further. Where did I first hear that message? So the hack is you can redirect it in the moment. And then once you have your calm back, you can start exploring, where did this come from? And that's where the real freedom starts. Rewiring those beliefs in a way that is nurturing for your system. And you can do that with a coach. You can do it with a therapist. I highly recommend not going it alone, because that reinforces the message to your system that you're going to be outside of the herd and probably picked off by a predator. Just sounds extreme, but it's really what our survival systems were made for, is to keep us alive when predators are a real option out there. So I hope this is helpful. I hope that you'll find whatever your pattern interrupt is that is reliable for you. Write yourself a reminder in your phone to use that when you need to. I hope that this is going to be something that you can integrate for yourself. And if you want some help figuring out what's underneath your survival brain paralysis, analysis paralysis, or your imposter syndrome, go ahead and book a free 15-minute Unlock Your Blocks focus call with me. I would love to help you walk through, where did this come from? That is specifically what that 15-minute call is for. Where did this come from for me? And I will help you lay out your next steps so that you can get fully free and heal. Until next time, I hope you take such good care of yourself, and I'll see you here again soon.